Hello there, peeps. Sorry I didn't do this video yesterday. I kind of had a headache, so I kind of didn't really feel like recording. But today, I'm going to be doing two videos. Right now, I'm going to be doing the Scream series review, and then later tonight, I'll do the Halloween one. So right now, I'm going to start off with Scream. The Scream series, definitely is probably the movie that brought me into the whole slasher genre was Scream. I will admit it. After that, I got into the slasher genre after Scream. So, the movie came out in 1996, directed by Wes Craven, who's also directed the Nightmare movies. And this, what can I say? Probably one of my favorite horror series, you know. It's up there with the good ones like Halloween and Friday the 13th, in my opinion. Alright, so we're going to start off with Scream. Came out in December of 1996. This movie, because this came out at the era when horror movies were very, let's be honest, lacking. Like by the mid 90s, horror movies, or at least the slasher genre specifically, you had terrible sequels like Jason Goes to Hell, Wes Craven's New Nightmare. A lot of people didn't like that movie, and then you had Halloween 6. So like the three horror slasher juggernauts came out with bad movies. So what Wes Craven did in '96 kind of restarted it with Scream, which I gotta say, great movie. It kind of brought back the horror slasher genre. We had a new one because after Scream, you had movies like I Know What You Did Last Summer, Urban Legend. You had all these teen slasher movies. It became really popular after Scream. And Scream, I mean, you had great characters. You had Nev Campbell, Courtney Cox, David Arquette, Drew Barrymore for a little bit. You had a good cast. I love that it pays homage to other horror movies. And that's the one thing, I guess I'll start off the plot. The story is basically simple. It's about this girl named Sydney who lives in a town called Woodsboro, who a year prior, her mother was killed, and the guy who killed her mother, Cotton Weary, who's accused. And then basically this whole movie, you meet her boyfriend Billy, her friend Tatum, and her boyfriend Stu, and Randy. I mean, and what really made this movie Dewey, he was the cop, and then you had Gail Weathers, the newswoman. Pretty much simple. A series of murders start happening, like the first murder of Casey Becker. She was home alone, and Ghostface? Ghostface called her and killed her, basically, and that's his MO. And pretty much, Sydney gets attacked. Then her and Gail fight after that. I think like she slaps Gail or punches her. Or was it slapped? I think she slapped her. Yeah. What really made this movie, great pacing. You have the great iconic scene with Randy telling the rules, which I love. It's probably one of my favorite scenes about this movie. It was a cult classic in my opinion. I mean, and then you have the great reveal to be her boyfriend, Billy. You find out Billy and his partner and his friend Stu were the ones who committed the murders. Like, that they systematically switched costumes. And then one aspect about Scream I really love is the realism. Because Scream, because let's be honest, a lot of the major slasher movies are very, hold on. Like, look at it. Look at Halloween, Friday the 13th. They have a supernatural element to them. And I think what made Scream good, it was realistic. Think about it. A guy going around killing people, calling his victims, and then killing them. That could happen in real life. It's just a guy in a costume, in a sense. And I love the whole whodunit aspect about it. And then the great climax with Sydney killing Stu and Billy. I mean, and then they're trying to frame her dad, have her dad be the reason Billy killed. And you find out also that Billy was the one who killed Sydney's mother instead of Stu. They framed Cotton, pretty much. So yeah. And then she tried to frame her dad, have Sydney's dad be the one who committed all these killings in the anniversary of his wife's death. That's what they're trying to make it look like. And I mean, what can I say about Scream? It's a cult classic. It really redid the horror slasher genre. It brought it back because we thought for several years, and by this point in the '90s, that the slasher genre was kind of dead because people kind of got tired. It got yeah, and so Scream definitely a 10. I mean, great cast, great characters. You care about all the characters in the movie, so 10. I rate this a 10. Gore factor. This is probably, in my opinion, one of the more gorier ones. The scene where you see Casey hanging and you see her with her organs hanging out. So, next is Scream 2. Came out literally a year later, December of '97. What can I say? I like this one. It was a good, for a sequel, it was good. I think it did its job. I think, it's not as good as the first one, but I think it did it. You brought some of the cast back: Sydney, Dewey, Gale, Randy, and Cotton. You actually see Cotton. I think you saw him on the TV in the first movie. You never actually, he was sort of in the movie, but he wasn't in the movie, if you get what I mean. You actually see him for the first time, played by Lee Schreiber. I think he did a great job at Cotton. You meet this other newswoman, who's trying to be like Gale. More on her later. And then Sydney's friend, what was her name? I forgot what her name was, but yeah, Sydney's in college. The story in this one is Sydney's in college, and pretty much the same problems happen. Serial killer finds her and wants to kill her, in a sense. And then in this one, I liked the opening. I love the opening of this movie. Jada Pinkett Smith and Omar Epps both get killed. I'm sorry, I didn't like Jada's character, but I think that's what her character was meant to be, really annoying. They go to see Stabwell. Oh yeah, this is also where Wes tried the whole movie within a movie, because Wes did this with New Nightmare. In this one, they did it with Stab. Stab basically was Scream. The prior events of the first movie, they decided to make a movie called Stab, and everyone had Ghostface costumes in the movie. And the movie starts out, Ghostface kills Omar Epps' character, takes his clothes, goes to Jada, kills her, and walks out. And then chases Sydney. And in this movie, they do try to make you think it's Cotton. Randy, there's new rules. And there's also Mickey. He's also a new character in this movie. And then Sydney's boyfriend. Hold on. I know I don't like doing this, guys, but I forgot his name. Hold on. Yeah, and also it's a good cast. You had Timothy Olyphant. You also had Jerry O'Connell. He was in this movie. Jada Pinkett Smith. You had a pretty big cast in this one too. Oh, Derek, that's what this dude's name was. Oh, and the black girl's name, she's Sydney's friend, is Hallie. So Hallie, and then Jerry O'Connell is Sydney's new boyfriend, Derek. In this one, Randy does the rules about sequels with talking with Dewey. The one thing about this movie, I mean, there are some things I didn't like that they killed Randy. I personally would have liked if they made Randy the killer. That'd be kind of interesting. Think about it, he would have a lot of reasons. You know how he had a crush on Sydney, but ever he tried to make move on her, she always had a boyfriend. And that would have been kind of cool if that storyline, say he's mad because she never took his advances and he goes crazy. And that's the thing too. It's a realistic reason too. So, but then you get the reveal. Oh, also you had before that you had God, what? Oh, Sarah Michelle Gellar. God. Sarah Michelle Gellar was in this movie. She gets killed. This is also around the time she was doing Buffy. So this movie came out during Buffy. So you had her in there. This movie had a pretty good cast, and I would say, and then you find out the reveal to be Mickey and Billy's mom, Mrs. Loomis. And I'm just gonna call her by that now. I really don't want to learn the name, but yeah, you find out Billy Billy's mother wants revenge because Sidney killed Billy in Scream One. So and then also Mickey, she used kind of as a patsy too, because she didn't like that. I think Mickey's reasoning because he wanted to be famous. I think that's pretty much what his reasoning was. Here's my thing with this movie. With I feel like with Mrs. Voorhees, which the climax isn't as good as in my opinion is in Scream One, but it wasn't bad. The climax was done at a theater where they're doing plays, so yeah. And then one thing I liked, they did make you think Cotton was the killer, especially with that scene between Cotton and Sydney, which I actually wouldn't mind because I can see why Cotton. Think about it. She put him on death row for a year. So, I mean, you would think he'd be a good candidate. I actually thought, when I first watched this movie, I actually thought it was Cotton. But you know what? It was Billy's mother. I feel like what they're trying to do, I don't know if they're trying to do this, but they're trying to make her like Mrs. Loomis, Mrs. Voorhees in Friday the 13th. It just didn't work. Because thinking about it, you look at, she left her son for a year because, Billy's dad had an affair with Sydney's mother, Maureen, which is hence is the reason why Billy killed Sydney's mom. And you want to feel bad for her because her son died, even though her son was a killer. And also, it's hard to feel bad for her with Mrs. Voorhees. Jason at one point he was just an innocent little kid. He just was deformed, and the counselors didn't pay attention. You can actually have sympathy for Mrs. Voorhees. With Mrs. Loomis, I feel like they were trying to do the same thing. It just didn't work. Because, think about it, she left her son, so you abandon him pretty much. So you want to act like you give a shit now? It's like, that's my issue with it. And then it ends up Cotton shoots Mrs. Loomis, and then Cotton gets the attention for being the hero. Yeah. It's still, at the end of the day, I still liked Scream 2. What's my favorite kill in this movie? I think when he threw Sarah Michelle Gellar off the roof, just because that was a funny kill. It's not a lot of blood, it was basic slitting. But you gotta understand, this movie isn't like Friday the 13th. The Scream series isn't like all about like you get like a fucking random spike shoved in. This is not that type of horror movie. This movie, the kills are basic. And so Scream 2 I liked. I liked it, so I rated it. I'll give it a 7. I think this movie was solid. There were things about this movie I didn't like, but you know what? And now, on to Scream 3. This came out 3 years later in 1997. In 2000. Sorry. This came out in 2000. The story pretty much is Stab 3, which is going to be the new Stab movie. And this movie was set in Hollywood. It was set in California. In Hollywood, the movie starts out Cotton and his girlfriend gets killed. And you find out the killer has this voice box which he can sound like anyone. Which in my opinion, it kind of takes out the suspense out of it because it's like, could it be this guy? And you also find out Sidney Prescott is living in isolation, basically, after the previous two events in her life from the first and second movie. And he has like a different name and all that. Dewey comes back, but he's like some girl's bodyguard. And you had a good cast in this movie. You had a lot of let's be honest, a lot of the main characters you don't care about. You only care about really Sidney, Dewey, and Gale. That's really it. You had Patrick. Patrick Dempsey as Kincaid. He's the detective. Okay, so pretty much the movie, the killer recreates kills from Stab 3. So that's really what this is. A lot of the side characters, you also have Bridget Parker Posey. She's the fake girl who's going to be playing Gale Weathers in the Stab movie. And yeah, and pretty much the one thing, and then overall, Sydney gets found out, so Sydney meets up with the others, and there's one scene where they're at the studio, I think is where this was. It was at the studio, the Stab studio. And also there's the director, Roman. More on him later. So Randy somewhat makes a cameo in this movie in a video he made. It looks like he made in Scream 2. He talks about the rules of a trilogy. Because originally, Scream 3 was going to be the final Scream movie. In my opinion, it should have ended it, in my opinion. But then the reveal, it's very how it ends at a house that one of the directors names Milton, who I guess he's his famous director. The climax is at his house for some big party. The voice sounded very different. The killer voice in this movie, it sounded very different. It didn't sound so much similar. And then the whole him copying other people's voices was kind of eh. I wasn't really into that. You know. Oh, yeah. Just want to make sure. And the climax is between Sydney and the killer revealed to be Roman, who apparently is Sydney's half brother, because Maureen was an actress in Hollywood and she had sex with Milton. And Roman came out, but she didn't want to be the spawn, or something. I think in the movie they say she was raped, and that's where she had that reputation as being a slut, because that's really what everyone's talked about her as being a slut. Um, so Roman wanted payback because she wouldn't take him in, because she wanted to, I guess, to forget her past. So he's the one who actually told Billy about he showed him the video of the affair between with Billy's dad and Sydney's mom. Hence the reason so in a sense, he kind of caused the events of the movies. Which I kind of liked, but then you think about it. 3 movies in, he could have, honestly, I also say he could have been the killer in number 2. Which, then they dropped the whole, him being a half brother would have been better, but the way they did in this movie, just kind of, oh, he's the half brother, it's like they shoehorned it in. They didn't try to make it. He's like, and it just. I mean, the fight scene was cool. He seemingly kills her, and he seemingly kills Sydney, and then she fucks with him, and then she stabs him, and then he gets shot in the head. The killer does get shot a few times, but you find out he's just wearing, a vest, a bulletproof vest. So. And then the ending is weird. The door closes and Sydney sees the door open, and then that's it. It was a weird ending. So yeah. Here's Scream 3 wasn't terrible, but in my opinion was one of the weaker ones in the series, in my opinion. I think they shoehorned the half brother thing way. They shoehorned it in. It's not like it felt. It's like and I'm saying the climax was still good. I'm not hating on the climax, and I think that's one of the things about Scream. The climax is always the best part. In my opinion, the first one had the best climax. Second one, this one, I didn't like. I personally was not the big fan of the second one either. This one was good, but they shoehorned him being the brother. I think they shoehorned that in. But also, it didn't have the suspense feel to it. And I think I still liked Scream 2, even though it wasn't in Woodsboro. I mean, it wasn't in college. It did good. And this one, it was in a studio mainly. I mean, there were some cool kills. I think was probably my favorite kill in this movie. There was an explosion scene, which is very unlikely in a horror movie. It felt more like an action movie. It didn't really feel like a slasher. And I also feel like I think Sydney did great. I think the main 3 are the only ones you care about. The rest of the characters are kind of eh. So if I had to rate Scream 3, I'd rate it a 6. I think 6.5. I enjoyed this. I think if you want to watch, it's watchable. It's not like I hate this movie. It didn't have the suspense feel to it, I feel like what other Scream films had. So on to 2011's Scream 4. This movie came out about 15 years after Scream. This movie came out when I was 15. Came out only a couple years ago. Originally, Scream 3 was gonna be the finale but I guess they decided to come out with Scream 4. This movie, I actually love. The one thing I will admit about this movie I like that they brought it back to Woodsboro. Um, the beginning was kind of cool. I like how they, at this point, had like 9 stab movies. 7 or 8 stab movies at this point. I like the fake beginnings, and in the actual beginning, with these 2 high school girls are killed, and then you find out Sidney Prescott has wrote a book about, I guess, getting over her fears of the whole, living, hiding from the events in her life. So she decided to um, write a book, and then Rebecca, I guess, is her like publicist. You find out Sydney has a cousin named Jill, played by Emma Roberts. This movie had a really good cast. More killings happen. Oh, Gale Weathers and Dewey are married. They're married. Find out they're married. He pretty much starts Ghostface, and there's more killings. And yeah, I like this movie. The one thing I will admit, Scream 4, what I really do like about it, I like that they brought Scream back into it. Because number 3, I feel like it was lacking, and I didn't feel like a Scream movie. This one did. I like that they added the modern, video camera, social media. They added all the remakes, references. It still felt like a Scream movie. And then you also had Kirby, who's played by Hayden Panettiere. In a sense, she felt like the new Randy. Weird because she's a female, but she loves horror movies. She has horror movie knowledge. I kind of liked the scene where Ghostface was calling her and she was answering all the questions like what knife. And one thing too, I'm happy that the voice came back. I just didn't feel like in Scream 3 the voice sounded like the voice. It sounded different. This one at least sounded very similar to the voice in the movie, and I think this movie, Scream 4, did it. And you have characters like, I loved Charlie and Robbie. I like the whole vlog. I like the scene where they talked about a remake, sort of, or I like the rule scene in this movie. They make you think it's Jill's ex, Trevor. They try to make you think the killer is him. I actually even thought when I first saw this movie, I thought it was gonna be him. But then you find out that it's Jill and Charlie, and apparently they're the ones who did it. And they recorded all the murders, and they're trying to make it like, because you find out the reasoning for Jill's wanting to kill because she was tired of being not talked about. Because think about it, everyone's talking about Sidney Prescott and her family, and I think. And then the climax was good. It made you think they kill Sydney because Jill kills Charlie because she wants the attention for herself, and then she thinks she kills Sydney, and the actual climax takes place at a hospital. It was a cool fight scene. I think this movie, I love this movie. I like Scream 4. You watch it a couple times and you can realize that Jill's the killer. They tried to make you think it's her boyfriend. They really do try to push that in this movie. But in Scream 4, I have to say, definitely a lot better than number 3. I think this movie, I heard they're gonna do another trilogy. I don't think they should. I think they should just end it here. That's my opinion. So, if I had to rate it, I'd rate Scream 4 an 8. I think this is almost as good as the first movie, and I love the whole references. I love how they made it more modern. It was a modern Scream movie because this movie came out in 2011. So you know what? We're going to add a more modern twist to it. So you know what? I like this movie. So 8. So overall, I love the Scream series. It's a good watch. I suggest if you're a horror fan, slasher fan, watch the Scream series. Comment down below on what you guys think of the Scream series. Which one's your favorite? Which one was your least favorite? And all that. I want to be more interactive and stuff. So until later tonight, because I'm coming back later tonight to do my Halloween series review. That one might be really long, so I don't know. So until later, guys. Signing off. Peace.